And pretty soon, if you just did this for a few weeks, you'd have that skill in your back pocket and you'd be able to whip out an offer within minutes, not hours, not days. And that's going to totally level up your game. And the people who compete here, they're fast. You must be fast enough to compete with them. What's up, everybody, to the Fun Flip Repeat podcast. I'm Justin Foster. I'm going to be your host today. We're going to be missing Joel. He's out and about hanging out with other investors, some of you out in the community. And he said, let's do something kind of like really good value add for you so that you can get more offers out today. So what I'm going to do today is very simply break down one of the number one skills that I believe that you can focus on to be able to make more offers. And we know that the more offers that we make, it's one of the leading indicators to doing more deals, to doing better deals, to having deals that have more margin of safety and lower risk. And so this is going to be all meat and potatoes as we go through it today. I'm not going to be able to cover everything about offers or like how to talk to sellers and stuff like that, but this is more like what's going on in the background and to give you permission to focus on this skill. The skill that I'm going to focus on right now is how to make offers faster. Now, when it comes to not just real estate, but particularly like single family houses, the number one thing that I see for the guys and gals that are out there crushing it and they have too many opportunities, they don't have enough money, and they have multiple projects going on, and they've turned this thing into a repeatable business, just like a McDonald's kind of business, is that they can make an offer very quickly. They can underwrite an offer very quickly. They know their numbers that they're trying to hit, and they can communicate that offer to a motivated seller, to a wholesaler, or to somebody who has a listed property quickly. They're fast. So if you're in this position where maybe you've started to get some leads, maybe you started to understand how you can have more conversations and see these opportunities, but you haven't been able to convert very many of those opportunities, the number one skill that you can focus on is to be fast. So I want to qualify and quantify that a little bit more, and then I'll give you a little bit of a framework of things that you can have in place to be fast. But if you can't make an offer, like let's say within an hour of seeing a property, we all know that time kills all deals. Then somebody else who's a more experienced investor, if that's a real deal, is going to scoop it up. And some of you might be in a position where it will take you 3, 4, 5 days to put an offer together. And we need to shrink that down. The way that we're going to shrink that down is to create some assumptions and give you a framework to help you do that. Okay, again, all meat and potatoes, let's go. The first thing before you get kind of set up this and with this skill is that there's certain sort of prerequisites that you're going to have in place to even feel comfortable with an offer. And there's two things that you need. Number one is funding. So how do you get the money? I would say, you don't have to have all the money in your bank account. You can use other people's money. That's why we exist with fixed lending. We're happy to have a conversation with you when you don't have a deal, go through a few items about what you're trying to do. And we can say, yeah, if you found a deal that was about like this, then we're going to bank you. And you can have that conversation with other private lenders. You can have a conversation with a brick and mortar bank. So have the conversation preemptively and get sort of pre-qualified. And what do I mean by pre-qualified? You don't necessarily need a letter that says, I'm going to bank you. Like at a traditional bank, you can get that. You could just have a conversation with a family member that hypothetically, hey, if you found this deal, I would love to be able to partner with you on that. A hard money lender like us, I would love to be able to partner with you on a deal like that. And that will boost your confidence to go out there and make the offer. The second prerequisite is that you need to be able to filter out what it is that you want to buy. The people who are successful in real estate are hyper-focused on a specific property type, hyper-focused on a specific location, and that's called your buy box. Where you buy and what you buy is a buy box. You have to have a buy box. And what is in the buy box? It should be the things that you have to have, meaning you're only going to buy single family houses. Has to be a single family house. Maybe you're only going to buy single family houses that are after 1960, whatever. And so the vintage or the year that it's built is a must have. What I would give you a tip here on this, which is you don't want to filter too hard on your buy box. You very much want to kind of leave that open because some criteria or some aspects of a property you can change. You can change a 2-bedroom house into a 3-bedroom house, for instance. You could add a bathroom. And so we don't want to filter out all of those criteria, but we do. So we want to kind of cast a wider net, but we still need to know, what is our buy box? What do we want to own? Where are we going to be buying this property? So if you're right now looking in 3 different markets, if you're looking at 3 or 4 different asset classes, stop doing that and just pick one and stick to that and start compounding and going deeper into those and develop a buy box that allows you to know, what is it that you want to buy either to flip, or what is it that you want to buy to own. Now, you got funding in place, you know what you want with the buy box, and you have some filtering mechanisms. And so at the very top, we have these prospects and we have these leads coming in, and that tells us, basically rules out and tells us, what are we going to say no to? And then what are we going to say yes to in terms of looking at more deeply. At the next level, right, of the filter, you go into like a fast offer mode. So you have some leads come in, you filter out the stuff that you don't want. And then maybe you have half a dozen properties that you're looking at, and you need to make a fast offer on all of those. It's much better to, not cherry pick just one that you like the most and only make one offer, and go deep into the analysis to make the best offer that you could ever dream of at this stage in the game. It would be much better to just kind of make some assumptions. That's what we need to do. And then throw out 6 offers. So every lead gets an offer, and then see what conversation you start from there, right? So as a rule, you want to adopt a principle of, more leads get more offers. In fact, we had a principle when we were doing 100 deals a year that every single lead got an offer. And so an offer is just kind of like throwing out a number. It could be a quick text message. It could be something on the phone. It could be a quick letter of intent, quick email. It doesn't have to be a full on contract that's sent to the other side. Okay. So, you have a fast offer of kind of framework here. And then let's go through the numbers and the assumptions that you need to make. So you need to make some key assumptions. Here they are. One question you need to ask is, on a scale of like 1 to 5, how close is this to my buy box? So if it's a 1, then you're going to make a really, really low offer because you're not as interested in that. But if it's like a 5, meaning it's like right smack dab in the center of your buy box is a really beautiful property, that's going to change your offer a little bit, right? So you kind of need to judge and scale, how close is this going to fit with my buy box? How ideal is this kind of property for what my criteria of my buy box is? That's why you need the buy box, not only to filter, but to answer that question. The second thing is, and this is where people really get hung up, is you have to estimate some key numbers. On our website, Joel goes into this much deeper, but I'm going to keep it very simple. This is a quick and dirty back of the napkin analysis. So the first one that you need to estimate is, what would be the value of this property with it being fixed up, the after repair value. In order to do that, you pull comparable sales for the finish that you're going to put on the property, and you normalize. The number one thing that you need to do is normalize that to price per square foot. So if you have a $100,000 property that is 1,000 square foot, then that's $100 per square foot. And you create an average of price per square foot of all of your comps. Ideally, you're going to have 3 to 5 of those. And then that's the number you use for your ARV. This should take you like less than 5 minutes for sure, but you might be able to do this in less than 2 minutes easily, once you get some reps in. So you're going to find some properties, and you're going to see that they're good comparable properties, and there's some criteria that you can use for that they're close by, that they're the same age, that there's the similar size, right? They're not across the train tracks or across the highway. They're in the same neighborhood. They're in the same school district. And then you take 3, 4, 5 properties and create an average price per square foot of each of those to use on the square footage of your subject property. Now, the second big assumption that you need to make is that you have to assume what the repairs are going to be. And you can do this just by looking at the pictures. So again, go onto the website. You can see Joel break this down in a little bit more detail. But at this stage in the game of fast offer, you can basically separate it into a light, medium, heavy rehab. A light rehab can be $20 per square foot. That's it. So if it's 1,000 square feet, maybe it's just a cosmetic deal. You're going to put some paint and some floors in there, You might replace a few fixtures, but the kitchen and the bathroom's going to stay the same. You're not going to do anything like the roof or the siding, certainly. $20 per square foot. That's $20,000. Just use that number. If you feel uncomfortable with that, put in a fat contingency of like 30%. The more uncomfortable you feel, put in the fatter the contingency. Or a medium rehab might be that you're going to update the kitchen. You're going to update the bathrooms. It's mostly cosmetic, but there's not going to be all the CapEx to do. It's not a full gut job, right? And that would be maybe $35 a square foot. Pick a number. If you're unsure about what that number is, estimate high. The fourth assumption that you're going to make is a heavy rehab. Now, a heavy rehab can be $40 plus. You can go all the way up to $60 per square foot, and depending on how heavy the project is. So this math or these assumptions get broken down the heavier the rehab there is. So the lighter the rehab that there is, then the more accurate your assumption probably will be. But something that you can do is you can start to test your assumptions against your scopes of work as you develop those later in the later stages of verifying your offer and doing the final checks that you need to do on the offer. That comes later. Okay. How close is it to my buy box? Estimate the key numbers, value, repairs. Keep this simple, y'all. And then the third thing that you need to figure out is what is your max allowable offer? We call that the MAO, M-A-O, max allowable offer. What can you offer? Okay, what you can offer would be the ARV times a discount. So what kind of discount do you want? You got to know that. You need to make 30%, you need to make 25%, you need to make 20%. Maybe that depends on how close it is to your buy box and how much repairs are needed on the property, but that can be a scale. So you take off the top your percentage of profit, you subtract out repairs, and then that's your MAO. So let's say that the property is worth $250,000 and you want to make 20% on that because it's a lipstick job. So that's $50,000 off the top. Now we're at $200,000, and let's say that it needs $30,000 in repairs. That means your max offer is $170. You can't lead with the max offer of $170. You have to anchor below that, but you have a number that you can throw out there. Again, text message, email, a quick phone call. You don't have to put a contract. So just walking through this little 10-minute conversation, if you have the filtering mechanism, you've had a conversation with the funding, you understand the assumptions that you're going to need to make on the value of the property and the repairs, you should have everything you need back of the napkin, quick and dirty style, to throw out an offer. And if you can just get into the habit of throwing out more offers faster, trying to track your leads and then track how many of those leads get an offer, and then up that number, you're going to have all the deals you ever need in this business. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, nice and simple. Guys, go out there and do the thing that matters most. Make more offers. Try to work on the skill of doing that faster. Time yourself, get better. And then if you need to, get feedback on that from other investors, from contractors, and that sort of thing. And pretty soon, if you just did this for a few weeks, you'd have that skill in your back pocket and you'd be able to whip out an offer within minutes, not hours, not days. And that's going to totally level up your game and the game that you're playing. The people who compete here, they're fast. You must be fast enough to compete with them. God bless. Have a great day. That's all there is. Take care.